Acclaimed New York Times best-selling author Ta-Nehisi Coates. His new book, The Message, is a trio of interconnected essays that examine how the stories we tell or avoid telling can shape and even distort our reality. In the book, Coates reflects on his emotional first trip to Africa to visit Dakar, Senegal. Then he takes readers to Columbia, South Carolina, where he reports on the attempted banning of one of his books on race. And finally, Coates travels to the Middle East to witness the Israeli-Palestinian conflict firsthand. Ta-Nehisi Coates, good morning. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. You say that this book is written specifically for writers, stating that the task for young writers should be nothing less than changing the world. Why do you feel like writers should bear that responsibility?
Saving the world. Saving the world, just to be really specific. Writing is how we interpret so much of everything that is around us. The Message is a political book. It argues that much of our politics actually happens before we walk into a voting booth, that our choices around us, that who we believe is human, who we don't believe is human, what policies we believe should be in the world, which policies we don't, are actually shaped largely by writing and the stories we tell. And so I believe that writers, and particularly young writers, have so much to do in the politics and in this time when, obviously we have so much conflict and there's so many quote-unquote issues to be dealt with.
Ta-Nehisi, I want to dive into the Israel-Palestine section of the book. It's the largest section of the book. And I have to say, when I read the book, I imagine if I took your name out of it, took away the awards and the acclaim, took the cover off the book, the publishing house goes away, the content of that section would not be out of place in the backpack of an extremist. And so then I found myself wondering, why does Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I've known for a long time, read his work for a long time, very talented, smart guy, leave out so much? Why leave out that Israel is surrounded by countries that want to eliminate it? Why leave out that Israel deals with terror groups that want to eliminate it? Why not detail anything of the first and the second intifada, the cafe bombings, the bus bombings, the little kids blown to bits? And is it because you just don't believe that Israel, in any condition, has a right to exist?
Well, I would say the perspective that you just outlined, there is no shortage of that perspective in American media. That's the first thing I would say. I am most concerned always with those who don't have a voice, with those who don't have the ability to talk. I have asked repeatedly in my interviews whether there is a single network, mainstream organization in America with a Palestinian American bureau chief or correspondent who actually has a voice to articulate their part of the world. I've been a reporter for 20 years. The reporters of those who believe more sympathetically about Israel and its right to exist don't have a problem getting their voice out. But what I saw in Palestine, what I saw on the West Bank, what I saw in Haifa in Israel, what I saw in the South Hebron Hills, those were the stories that I have not heard. And those were the stories that I was most occupied with. I wrote a 260-page book. It is not a treatise on the entirety of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But if you were to read this book, you would be left wondering, why does any of Israel exist? What a horrific place, committing horrific acts on a daily basis. So I think the question is central and key. If Israel has a right to exist, and if your answer is no, then I guess the question becomes, why do the Palestinians have a right to exist? Why do 20 different Muslim countries have a right to exist?
My answer is that no country in this world establishes its ability to exist through rights. Countries establish their ability to exist through force, as America did. And so I think this question of right to Israel does exist. It's a fact. The question of its right is not a question that I would be faced with any other country.
But you write a book that delegitimizes the pillars of Israel. It seems like an effort to topple the whole building of it. So I come back to the question, and it's what I struggled with throughout this book. What is it that so particularly offends you about the existence of a Jewish state that is a Jewish safe place and not any of the other states out there?
There's nothing that offends me about a Jewish state. I am offended by the idea of states built on ethnocracy, no matter where they are.
Muslim included.
I would not want a state where any group of people lay down their citizenship rights based on ethnicity. The country of Israel is a state in which half the population exists on one tier of citizenship, and everybody else that's ruled by Israelis exists on another tier, including Palestinian Israeli citizens. The only people that exist on that first tier are Israeli Jews. Why do we support that? Why is that okay? I'm the child of Jim Crow. I'm the child of people that were born into a country where that was exactly the case of American apartheid. I walk over there and I walk through the occupied territories and I walk down the street in Hebron. And a guy says to me, I can't walk down the street unless I profess my religion. I'm with another pastor. No. I want to. This is very, very important.
It is
extremely important.
Yeah, lay it down.
I'm working with the person that is guiding me is a Palestinian whose father, whose grandfather and grandmother was born in this town. And I have more freedom to walk than he does. He can't ride on certain roads. He can't get water in the same way that Israeli citizens who live less than a mile away from him can.
And why
is that okay?
Why is that? Why is there no agency in this book for the Palestinians? They exist in your narrative merely as victims of the Israelis, as though they were not offered peace at any juncture, as though they don't have a stake in this as well. What is their role in the lack of a Palestinian?
I have a very, 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 very moral compass about this. And again, perhaps it's because of my ancestry. Either apartheid is right or it's wrong. It's really, really simple. Either what I saw was right or it's wrong. I am, for instance, against the death penalty. What the person did to get the death penalty It really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they were selling a nickel bag of marijuana or if they were a serial killer. I am against the death penalty. I am against a state that discriminates against people on the basis of ethnicity. I'm against that. There is nothing the Palestinians could do that would make that okay for me. My book is not based on the hyper-morality
What's the last
of the
message you
Palestinian
want
people.
in less than, because many people feel it's complicated. You say it's not complicated. Less than 20 seconds. What's your message?
Less than 20 seconds. I want people to read the book.
Well,
And I don't make the assumption that somebody would just read the book and have read nothing else about Israel
Okay.
and Palestine.
You're still invited to High Holidays. I'll see you at the show. I mean
so
it,
much.
buddy.
That'll do it for us.
Welcome to Seen and Heard podcast, where everyone should be seen and heard. And my co-host, Miss Kenneth, hello. And you have the book, right? The Message?
No, I ordered it.
Oh, you ordered it. Okay. Also, for context for everybody listening or watching out there, the other reporter or journalist that was on the panel with his aggressive behavior towards Ta-Nehisi Coates, his name is Tony Dokupool. He has 2 children from a previous relationship. They live in Israel with his mother, his ex-wife. And he's now married to Katie Tur, who is on MSNBC, and they have 2 children. So in 2014, he announced that he converted to Judaism. Not that matters about anything, but it does matter because there's context in why he was so aggressive and disrespectful to Ta-Nehisi Coates, which I thought that was disrespectful.
So in less than 15 years, he's been Jewish. So he was something before those 15 years. So the minute he jumped the broom and became Jewish, he became this person who now runs around hollering, screaming, and jumping up and down, anti-Semitic, anti-Semitic, anti-Semitic. A couple of points. One, I agree with Ta-Nehisi Coates about our young journalists are the ones who have to be positioned to save the world by telling the stories. They have to be positioned to save the world and be willing to go out and find what the real stories are. And recently I was in a panel discussion with some young journalists who focused on the Israel-Palestinian war, and never once did they even bring up that in the Sudan, there is the worst humanitarian crisis ever, and that in 2 years, the United States has pumped about $1.2 billion in to save lives, to give people rescuing, to give people food, the very basics of life. And yet, and still, in one fell swoop, the United States has just given Israel $8.7 billion. And our young journalists have to be willing to go out, get those stories, and put them out there. So I sincerely do agree with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And then the aggressive interviewer is talking about who deserves to have space. And I have to be really honest and say on Monday, it'll be the year of the aggression that Israel has taken against Palestine, because some Hamas, maybe the Hamas struck, I don't know, 25 years from now, we may find that it wasn't Hamas. It was just yet again, one of those fake news stories to get Israel where they want to be. But let's say it's true. So on Monday, it'll be the 1-year mark for that. There is no way in this world, not just this country, but there is no way in the world that we should be sitting on the sideline watching that level of devastation. 41,000 innocent people have lost their lives because Israel is fanatic about going after Hamas. 135,000 have been injured because Israel is zealous in going after Hamas. Then go after Hamas and leave everybody else alone. All 14 institutions of higher learning have been bombed. So, based upon Israel's aggressive behavior and the fact that they're not even only just in Palestine and Gaza, they're all over the place, Lebanon, Iran, who knows? Then, based upon that behavior, I question whether or not, as the interviewer said, whether or not they do have the right to do all that they're doing and hide under the right to defend themselves. Thank
And
you.
and to add, thank you for that. And also to add to October 7th, it didn't start October 7th, and not to dismiss what happened on October 7th, it did not start October 7th. 1917, look up the Balfour Declaration. That is where the British decided that they were going to award the Palestinian land to Zionists. 1917 is when that started. So, even, let's see here, it says the second half of the declaration was added to try to satisfy opponents of the policy for like a two-state solution, who had claimed that it would otherwise prejudice position of the local population of Palestine and encourage anti-Semitism worldwide by stamping the Jews as strangers in their native lands. The declaration called for safeguarding the civil and religious rights for the Palestinian Arabs who compose the vast majority of the local population, and also the rights and political status of the Jewish communities in other countries outside Palestine. The British government acknowledged in 1939 that the local population's wishes and interests should have been taken into account, and recognized in 2017 that the declaration should have called for the protection of the Palestinian Arabs' political rights.
So in 1947-48, President of these here United States said, yes, there is a two-state resolution. However, it was never enforced, as you said about the earlier times. And if the facts are correct, Israel stepped in and they assumed 77% of all of the space that was the space that was supposed to be shared by the two groups of people. So there has never ever been any intent to have a two-state solution. And we keep talking about this two-state solution. If it has never worked in the past, it is not going to work now. And certainly, if we're talking about a two-state solution, well, Palestine has nothing because it has all been bombed. The UN has told Israel they must give reparations to the Palestinians so that they can rebuild. As far as I am concerned, the United States needs to be a part of that. After World War II, the United States fished out $13.3 billion for the Marshall Plan, gave it to 18 European countries and said, here, take this and go restore yourselves and get yourselves back to where you were before this war. So if that's the case, then I don't see any reason why 50 years later, 60 years later, they can't do the Marshall Plan and give Palestine $30 billion and say, go restore yourselves. And the last thing I'm going to say, talking about Jewish safe places, no Jewish safe place should be at the price of genocide for any other group of people. And that's how I feel. And the other group of people I'm talking about are the Palestinians. They should have the right to the same safe space.
I wanted to read this quick letter. This was in November 2nd, 1917, and it is addressed to Lord Rothschild. And it says, Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's government, the British, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. And I cannot read the signature down there, but this was written to Lord Rothschild in 1917.
So, why don't we go to the British government and tell them that their hands are as messy as anybody else's hands? I know that Britain and the United States are allies, West allies, and they are all committed to supporting Israel's right to defend themselves. But y'all started this in 1917. Nobody did anything about it 30 years later, 1947-48. Nothing was done. You're still talking about a two-state solution, although as time progresses, you see that Israel is rapidly taking over all of the space that was supposed to be two-state solution, to the extent 77%, and you're leaving them with 23%, and you want that 23% also. The West is complicit, and we need to do something about it. Netanyahu is a war criminal. He's a warmonger, and the United States is complicit. Britain is complicit, and that's how I feel.
I am going to play a clip here by Ta-Nehisi Coates and his trip. This is what he saw when he went to Palestine, and I think this is important for us, and we'll talk on the other side of this. So I want to share this very important clip and get your thoughts on the other side. Let's see, is this it here? There it is. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Huge pit in my stomach, like thinking about going. You know, I knew I had to go. And I think about that pit now. And I think about like the stress I had about it now. And I think I must have known that I was going to see some things that I could not unsee. That's probably the best way to put it. One of the very interesting things about being here, I will say, is on the one hand, I have, you know, among the Palestinians, seen all sorts of analogs to our struggle. But I will tell you that I've also seen like an alternative timeline, if that makes any sense, for Black Americans in watching the behavior of the Israeli state. I have been shocked by the simplicity of the brutality, the inhumanity, and oppression. I think there is great temptation when you are oppressed and you have been victimized and you have been brutalized and you have been subject to pogroms, genocide, and taking the tools of those who have oppressed you and using them and thinking that is the only way to secure your liberation. And it has to be avoided. It's not freedom. It's not freedom.
Seeing little kids with their backpacks going through these turnstiles in Hebron just, I think, broke me. Seeing 3 kids that were probably between the ages of maybe 8 and 9 down to 3, coming home from school holding hands, being questioned by a soldier. There's no other memory for them except for this. And that for me was, I think, one of the most gutting things, in addition to seeing Ethiopian Israeli soldiers doing some of that surveillance and enacting some of that violence.
They are on the other side. They are walking on the other side. That is part of the Shuhada Street over there.
You can't go down that street.
No, we cannot. Unfortunately, we cannot.
Can they come down this street?
Yes, our colleague, you mean?
If a settler wanted to come this
The settlers can come in any minute, of course. You can see them moving over there. You can see moving freely with the settler, with the soldier.
And can they come down this street if they
in any minute? They can come here anytime,
so
anytime.
Anywhere they want.
Yes.
And you can't go down
we cannot go over there. Exactly. And this is actually the...
I mean, Hebron is obviously just a straight up analog for Jim Crow and segregation. I mean, like again, I went to I was finishing up the tour of Hebron, which was moving in and of itself. But I wanted to go back and support one of the merchants who I told I would come back to, and there was a soldier, and he was black. He's black, and what couldn't have been any older than 2021. Huge gun, about yay big, handgun on the side and everything. And I said, look, I just want to go over here and just, support this merchant. And he said, what's your religion, bro? And so when I talk about like the indefensible, like the idea that you can't walk down the street, because of your religion, that's like straight up Jim Crow.
We're driving now on a number of roads that were built and designed for settlers. And so if you look essentially in every direction, but mostly to the front, you'll see a system of walls and roads. We're cutting through Palestinian areas. All of these lands are owned by Palestinians. This is Beit Jala. And the road cuts straight through it, but it also isn't accessible to them. So this is what the walls are doing here. They're preventing people from this town to use the road that uses their lands, that essentially connects all the different settlements in the West Bank to each other and to Jerusalem.
Those elements of, lack of quote unquote equal rights or, civil rights is actually one component of what is a very complicated and complex colonial structure that includes elements of settler colonialism, elements of apartheid, elements of, ghettos like we saw in Eastern Europe during World War II, elements that are familiar from the afterlives of slavery, and that all of those things together, as well as the unique elements of the Nakba, come together to create a geopolitical structure where there are these parallels that I think should inspire solidarities from people all around the globe, but is also uniquely sinister and uniquely evil and uniquely violent towards the human spirit and towards the land and towards ancestry and towards history.
It's in the small details that I have begun to understand the magnitude of this oppression, the small ways that your life and routine and predictability and your time is being taken away. I had no idea about that until I came here. It's the small ways that the spirits of people are resisting, but the ways also that the settlers and the Israeli authorities are trying to break people in tiny increments. That for me was astonishing.
For me, it's been very powerful to hear Palestinian activists here say, not just, please understand our struggle and be in solidarity with us, or please understand and go back and tell other people about it, but actually to say, these are global systems and they're harming us as they are harming you in a very literal, material way, right? In terms of training, connections, funding, corporations. And what's been very powerful is to hear Palestinian folks draw those parallels and to say, also part of how you support our struggle here is to go home and fight for your own liberation as well.
What sticks is just the thread of violence, but also the love that people have for their communities, for the memories of those communities. I see that as the geography that we are traveling across.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
That was I really wanted to share that. I'm sorry it was so long. So if anybody listening or watching wants it to go, it's over 6 minutes, but just speed up the time if you like. But I wanted to ask you, how far removed from Jim Crow are you? And like, were you little girl or? Because I was born in '68, but I still got to witness like physical remnants of Jim Crow. Like when my mom took us to the store, there were shadows over the water fountains in the store. And I didn't know at the time what that meant. I was just like, what people used to smoke in the stores. I was just like, well, it's probably a picture up there and the smoke stained the wall and stuff like that, and didn't understand that as a kid. That's where they had the whites only signs.
I grew up with the whites only signs also. I grew up with the colored only signs. I grew up with segregated schools. I grew up with cast off books that had names in them, and we were told they were brand new, but we knew who the white kids were, so we knew that the books were not brand new books. I grew up in communities where white kids would ride through and have BB guns loaded with pebbles and rocks and sand and etc., and they would shoot at us. So as far as Jim Crow is concerned, personally, I don't see that much has changed, but then that's just my personal brutal opinion, not to be shared by anybody else. Because let me tell you, if you're riding down south and you stop to get gas and it is 12:01 anybody's time, you may not be seen ever again. So not a lot has changed. And if you've been through it, you know what to do. My fear is I know a lot of young people who've never witnessed it. And the first time they come face to face with it, they're traumatized.
Hmm. My school books had Daughters of the Confederacy stickers in the back. That,
Mhm.
and I
I
didn't even
think
know really who the Daughters of the Confederacy were,
mhm.
but they were in the back of the
Yep.
book. I remember
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
when they started talking about these mothers, these patriot mothers or whatever running around
Mhm.
terrorizing schools now,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
remember Daughters of the Confederacy. I was like, those stickers were in the back of my school books,
Yep.
and I
Definitely so.
graduated high school in '86.
Well, I was born and raised in Virginia where all of this got started. So
Hmm. So, what were your thoughts on that video? That was very,
I
very.
think that there's a movie a long time ago called Schindler's List.
Mm,
It became mandatory viewing for high school students and some middle school students. And I think that piece right there, even though it's only 6 minutes long, I think that that is something, and if you send me the link to it, I'm gonna
mhm.
send it to every single person who is a
Okay,
member of N'COBRA, and while I cannot make them, I will demand that they take the time to review that clip. I
okay,
think it is mandatory that every single person see it, because here we go again talking about defending the right of Israel to defend themselves. I applaud the Palestinians who were in that 6-minute clip because they did not come off as being um, mad, angry, hateful, revengeful. Now, the other side, these people who have killed 41,000 of your members of your state and injured 135,000, you have lost all perspective. And what you say about never again is what you are using to be able to hide behind. And I applaud those people because they have a better understanding of the plight of people of African descent, it seems, than some of
hmm,
our own people do.
yep,
So it is 6 minutes. Send me the clip. I
I
am
will.
going to demand that every N'COBRA member take the time to watch that, and I'm going to ask that they engage in conversation with each other, their communities, and their churches, because too many of us are caught up in the I have friends who say that Israel Jews are the chosen people, and I've argued that nobody is the chosen people, and if there is anybody who's the chosen people, one group who suffers 200 plus years of force-free labor, 100 years of Jim Crow, and current day vestiges must be the chosen people, because those 12 years of the Holocaust are nothing in comparison to even the 246 years of forced-free labor. So again, I would
And
love
still counting.
and current day vestiges. You're
Yep.
absolutely correct. So as far as I am concerned, I don't see how the West and they and the United States says Israel are their special friends. Well, if I have a special friend who is running around wreaking that kind of devastation and decimation, marching towards genocide, that's a friend I need to get rid of.
Mhm.
And the United States is not willing to do that. For the past eight decades, the United States stood with the Holocaust victims while they got reparations and restitution and restoration and everything else that they got. And yet and still, here we are asking for a commission just to be able to see whether or not reparations
Right.
is even in the cards. And they turn their back, and they will not even give us $20 million to stand up a commission. And with a flick of a wrist, you give $8.7 billion. Come on. You all know this is crazy. You know it's crazy. So if you don't do nothing else, buy the man's book, The Message. If you don't do nothing else, call the White House and tell them 202-454-1111 and tell them that we deserve to have an executive order for reparations signed off by President Biden. If he thinks that he needs to solidify his legacy, do it with that. And I hate to tell you, but my time is up.
And we were going to end there. Also, share, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. If you would like to support us, which helps with our programming, scan these QR codes. This is our GoFundMe. This is the Cash App. And we have Buy Me a Coffee. Just scan these codes and go to those sites and help support our programming, because we're still fundraising as well. And we will end there, and we will continue talking about this because there's so much more that I had lined up for us to talk about. So, but for now, we will be well, we have to go for now. So, but we will see you guys on the next one. Please subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, leave us a voicemail. We have a voicemail. I have all those links in the description box. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Miss Candace.
Bye.